Hardy, Jesse Saunders, Farley Jackmaster Funk, Chip E., Marshall Jefferson, and DJ Frankie Knuckles. If you don't know those names and how they've contributed to the house music scene in Chicago, you don't know Jack.
Jack your body, Jack your body, Jack your body, Jack your body, Jack your body.
In honor of Black History Month, Chicago native and sports expert from our Talk on Tuesdays platform, Coach Tony Thompson and myself will be giving an oral history about the Chicago house music scene from the 1980s and 1990s. We're celebrating how Chicago house music has continued to evolve and contribute to the award-winning sounds heard today. I'm Val the Voice Johnson, and this is Interludes.
Interludes, a Peer Lighthouse production. This episode is brought to you by
Interludes Extra presents Find Your Voice on Patreon. Become a friend, a fan, and join our VIP podcasting community today.
And now, all the way from the south side of Chicago, give it up for your host, Val the Voice Johnson.
Start sneaking at tea, using me like a tool. Now I know the deal, I can see right through you. I said, you ain't really down, playing the games you do. I said,
My. Oh, I used to love that track back in the day. Let's get into it. Recorded live on Interludes Extra, hashtag Wamba Wednesdays. Here's Val the Voice and Coach Tony. We are going to be getting into the conversation about house music. And because it's Black History Month and I love talking about music, this platform loves highlighting folks that do music. Tony, you are not only a coach, but I want to say DJ. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. See that old school with the vinyl, baby. And Val, I wore this shirt. I had this shirt made. Look at this shirt, Jeff, for you.
Not everyone understands house. Exactly.
Not everyone understands house. You know that.
No, not everyone. I wish more people did. I really wish that more people did, but they don't.
And I'll give it to you perfectly. Mm-hmm. And you'll understand this in a quick sentence. I told my son one day, I said, I know we got the new genre of hip hop and everything that goes on. I'm in Nashville, a couple people in DC, Miami, New York we talked to, you back at home in Chicago. But look at the department store, Val. And you tell me if I'm right or am I wrong. You go into the Magnificent Mile, where millions of dollars are spent downtown Chicago, and you go into just the basic of the basic stores, like as in the old Marshall Fields, which is now Dayton Hudson stores, changed over. You go into Carson's, you go into Prada, the Real, you go in any of those stores, and you just happen to walk through the store, going in the Neiman Marcus right there off of Ontario, and you listen to the music while you're shopping. It is the electronic house music or old house music. They're not playing around. Right. They're playing house music. And this is why Beyonce and Drake jumped into it full throttle, and people didn't like it, but both albums were a hit.
And I wanted to definitely speak on that because how ironic this year, and myself and Mr. Wamba, we covered this on a Talk on Tuesday episode when we talked about the Grammys. That win that Beyonce did for Renaissance was for Best Electronic Music Album. That gave her now 32 Grammys, which now makes her the most awarded artist in Grammy history. And it happened. What brought her over the hump was this release of this album. And Break My Soul, that one song, I hear Show Me Love from Robin S. That's easy. That's easy.
And I tried to be Val. I couldn't get her tonight. That was going to be my surprise guest for you tonight.
Who was going to be my surprise guest?
I actually got an in to Robin S.
Oh my gosh. We would love to have Robin S. on because I think, if I remember correctly, I think she either worked as an administrative assistant or a legal secretary, and she did this song, and it just
So you gotta show me love.
it just blew up. And I think that there was a recent video that had come out probably in the last couple of years where it was either the Philharmonic or it was like an orchestra behind her doing the song, and it sounded so rich because her vocals are still there. And I don't know if you remember with house music, well, definitely music that got very popular in I want to say parties and house parties and all the like. Let's stop right now and identify the difference between electronic and EDM music, and what is Chicago house. What can you tell me your definition? Yeah,
we're gonna take this trip way back in time. Like way back, how far back? Way back, right?
Way back in the time.
We're gonna go back and tie two cities together, and Chicago to the left on the west side of Lake Michigan, and Detroit on the right side of Lake Michigan on the east side, right? So you got the DJs and DJ Larry Levine that's coming out of there, DJ Terry Todd coming out of Detroit old school, Chicago old school Detroit house music, and their house music was a little more up tempo, a little more kick to it. And then you had none other than Chicago house music, which we happen to get the likes of none other than Frankie Knuckles, Mr. Frankie Knuckles right here, none other than Mr. Knuckles to bring in. And he came and he made this one album, which I happen to have one of the only released albums that right here. It's the collectors of Frankie's best drop. And Frankie came out of New York, Val, to come to Chicago. And as a kid, you know, my mama probably give me some whoopings right now, but we were sneaking out the house, going down to a club downtown Chicago. So if you're not from Chicago, a lot of people don't know there's something called Upper Wacker Drive and Lower Wacker Drive, which is part of two cities. And the old tale was that's how Al Capone was able to get in and out of Billy Goat Tavern when he was there next to the Sun Times building in Lower Wacker Drive, and the police or other gangsters looking for him. He would slide over to the Sun Times building and slide out on the Chicago River and get away. So in the early 80s, we opened up a club called The Warehouse, and it was just that.
I remember that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had the likes of Ron Hardy, right? Oh my God. We had the likes of Frankie Knuckles that was in there. Julian Jellybean Benitez from New York. Jellybean Benitez, he was a producer, and they were coming into these places, and the club was mainly set up to bring in old disco and mix with new, what they call house music. Your Robin S., your CC Penistons of the world, right?
Right.
And then my guys, who I happen to know, very good friends with, Vince Lawrence and Jamie Principal, when they brought their debut cut, Waiting on My Angel, which dropped. And for the people that couldn't get to the warehouse, who didn't, or the parents didn't allow them, up all of a sudden in the early 80s, we launched the best hot mix crew that was ever put together in the Chicago Hot Mix 5, that had on the bottom Julian Jumpin' Perez, with Rafa Rosario, with Mickey Mixon Oliver, Kenny Jammin' Jason, and none other than what we consider the godfather of house music, who is still jamming today. And if you want to hear him every Friday night on iHeartRadio, just go to iHeartRadio and click on C103 in Chicago, the Sundance, and you will hear none other than Mr. Farley Funkin' Keith get down on the ones and twos.
Right. So I want to say some of the early days of house music, according to masterclass.com, they mentioned some of the folks you mentioned: Ron Hardy, Frankie Knuckles, Mr. Lee, Jesse Saunders, J.M.
Jesse
Silk.
Saunders, yeah.
Yeah, Jesse Saunders. And I love Chip E. If
Chip
you
E.
only
Like,
knew. That was my
or
jam.
like this, like this, like this. Yeah.
Farley, Jack Master Funk, Marshall Jefferson, and Larry Hurd, aka Mr. Fingers, which I love it. And guys, visually, you can't see it, but Coach is bringing out not cassette tapes, not CDs, but record albums. Which one is that?
This is the Chicago house music anthem. And if anybody knows that this is the original 1984 Marshall Jefferson, gotta have house music all night long.
Rock your body, rock your body.
Yeah,
rock your body.
I'm talking about the real, and this is one of your classics that you like. This is none other than
Epic.
Little Louis and French Kiss.
Oh, and that beat. Oh, good gracious!
That beat was ridiculous, now.
And one thing that I used to do when I was much younger, when I was a teenager, I wanted to go to, it was either Providence St. Mel.
St. Mel on the west side.
Right. And then here on the south side, I want to say, was it Leo? It was other Catholic
schools. Leo on 79th Street.
They would have these house parties.
And don't forget Quigley South.
Quigley South, exactly. All of those. And Michael definitely could speak to all of that. But I wanted to go to these house parties. But at the time, I was too young. My mom was like, you are not going. I don't want anything crazy happening to you. But I did eventually sneak off to one of the ones. And I forgot which ones I snuck off to. But, and it was something about the music where even if there was a beef or anything happening that was like, oh, I don't like this person, you kind of just battled it on the dance floor. And then you would be like, I want to hear my song. And then you look around, said you would, my lady, and your love was true. But as soon as I turn my back, baby, look what you gonna do.
Hey, started sneaking and peeping,
sneaking and cheating.
Like a fool. All I wanna say is I can see right through you.
I said you ain't really down.
Really down? Man, Val.
You do.
And I'm gonna add on to that, Val. I'm gonna add on to that, and you'll get this, and you'll really get this being a female. I talked to a few people about this. We're talking about early 80s. So don't forget about Longwood. Longwood used to drop some serious party. But the biggest party in terms of high schools was none other than in Roseland at Mendel High School. If you were in Mendel, they would have a basketball game on Friday nights. And I was a freshman, went to Mendel before I went to Morgan Park. And if the game would finish, they would clear the gym out. And then they would let everybody back in the gym for the party. So the basketball game would go on and security would clear the gym, put everybody back in the lobby, and then you got to pay again to get back into the gym for the party. And of course, Paulie Keith, Frankie Knuckles, Ron Hardy,
all those guys.
Oh my God, Jesse Saunders. Anybody would show up.
It would be sweating. It would. You could smell the sweat in the.
The seats was huge. It was only one side. You had a stage, the floor. It was one side. The gym wasn't two-sided. They had their graduation stage in the actual gym. So that's where the DJs would be up on the stage, and depending on who you were. But the point I was making on that is, like you said, we went to Leo. This is back in the day where guys didn't care. You just grabbed the speaker and you danced with the speaker.
Exactly. It was that intoxicating with the music. And Mendel was where I snuck off to because I got in through being at the game. That's what it was. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to a game. And she was like, oh, okay. And that's how I got in. That's how a lot of teenagers got in, was that you would attend the game and then, make sure you have you got your cute shoes and all the rest of that type of stuff. So
you come home soaking wet. Your mom like, I thought you was going to a game.
I know.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Have you seen it? It's the weekly chat with EP Michael Womble, Coach Tony Thompson, and host Val the Voice Johnson. Interludes Extra presents Talk on Tuesdays. Join us and other special guests as we break down the latest topics surrounding music, movies, and sports every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, live in our chat on our Interludes YouTube channel, Facebook group, and now on Pod TV on Roku. Coach, you know what? Here's the thing. I did it a little bit. I had a turntable and DJ'd a little bit, in the late 80s, early 90s. I was learning how to, change with pitch and all the rest of that. What inspired me to kind of get into it was just kind of that joy you would see on people's faces. And I used to love using a cappella songs and play it over a different beat. What inspired you to want to DJ and actually just pick up turntables and go, okay, we gonna do this party thing? Who influenced you to do some DJing on your own?
This is crazy, but I'm gonna go back and stamp myself. So we're talking about my homeboy, none other than Common. Common went to Luther South, and he's hanging out with my homeboy Calvin Springer. Which Springer was listening tonight. But I hung out with a clique, big time clique. So back in the day, we put together our own preppy club. We call ourselves the Polo Boys. Everybody had these jeans and you had to wear polos. So at the time, Common was trying to become a rapper. My homeboy Calvin Stringer was at Luther South with him, which is off 87th Street, right? And so it doesn't exist today. And then my homeboy Clark Gilmore and Ron Durr, they were the pretty boys at Morgan Park, so we all kind of kicked it together. So one night, we get a chance to go to Mendel, and they're DJing, and they give me an opportunity to get on. It was one of the Battle of the DJs. I don't know if you remember the Bismarck Hotel downtown Chicago.
I do.
So went to a Battle of the DJs at the Bismarck. I got, man, I could do this. And up pops this person right here, CC.
Oh, my gosh.
So CC comes in that night and sings this hit song, Keep on Walking, Keep on Walking. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. You could just.
Yeah. So I was like, it's a wrap. So after that, we started doing house parties, like real basement blue light house parties. And I'll never forget the first part I tried to do. I didn't have no turntable, Val. So I tried to use my old man reel to reel. And I'm like, and I spent like all Thursday and all Friday with a pair of scissors and some tape, splicing it. Spliced. And they were like, the party, I'm like, this is never going to be a jam. And the party was a hit, had all the cuts. And so after that, our crew kind of got together. And we started doing parties. So when Farley and the big DJs weren't at Mendel, we were doing the DJing at Mendel, and it kind of put us on. We had the old school Tech 1200s, Newmark mixing boards, and these were all the vinyl. So I started collecting. There was a record store in Chicago down on Plymouth downtown behind Jones Commercial. Remember Jones High School?
I remember Jones Commercial. Yeah. It's still open too. Yeah.
Exactly. So we would go to the record store down on Jones. It was one of the only one, and they would literally sell all the wax that I got today. Some of these songs I got, Val, I've had for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I go into some of the stores, you can't get some of them. And then the ones you can get is that. They're like $100, $200 for 1 hour.
Yeah. And I definitely, I gave up my turntables, I want to say probably in like 94, 95, because I started to teach high school and I didn't have the time that I used to have with DJing. Guys that are DJing now, all you have to do is have you have an external drive. Yep. And this external drive can carry up to maybe 100,000 tracks, if more, 10,000 to more tracks. Carrying around the albums, the crates. That's the thing. Crates.
Real DJ.
Exactly.
Well, you sweating before you even DJ a party. Right. You already tired because you got to bring in 4 or 5 crates and the turntables and the coffins. And I want you to. I'm gonna pivot real quick to where you just said. Okay. So I want you to think about this, and the people that are listening tonight. You now got the CDJs, right?
Okay.
Those are, for people that don't know, those are the little small mixing boards with the turntables already connected, and you plug them into a computer.
Right.
And then you got the jump drive that you just showed, or the
external drive,
external drive, which I got one, but I got brand new. I got Pioneer 1200 turntables. They're about $1,000 a turntable.
Right.
So I work with me and my DJ to do a lot of stuff. So I got my own laptop, and I've got about 15,000 tracks on that. Because I'm old school guy, the first thing I did is went into the 80s, late 70s. And to go back to answer your earlier question, you had three types of house music. You had what we call UK techno house, which that was your Martin Circus, that was your Madonna, that was Yahoo, that was Yaz. You know,
I love Yaz.
Situation,
yes.
Right. Yeah, that was Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Relax, don't do it.
Oh my God.
When you want to go to it, and then you had from UK. Then you went to Chicago, what we call garage house music, and the garage house music was.
Which artist was that? Oh my gosh.
That's Lolita Holloway.
Really?
That was Love Sensation. Oh. So
now
then you went, and it's not over. Over.
I have a question now. Some of us youngins used to call music that was recorded before a certain time deep house. Is there a such thing as that?
That was the third place I was going to get to. So you had your techno, you had your garage, and then you had your deep house music. So your deep house music, those were your 1970 middle 70 artists that survived the letdown. In other words, and a lot of people listening tonight, 1978, 1979 in Kaminsky Park, there was a burning of what they call disco music into house. Right. There was a big fight that happened, and they burnt hundreds of thousands of albums, kind of like what they did with hip hop when Bill Clinton, these guys tried to said bring all the hip hop tapes out and step on, and they tried to ruin them, if you remember.
Right. I remember that.
Deep house music was your likes of your Teddy Pendergrasses and your Barry Whites and your OJs and Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes and people like that. That bad love, what you got. And then they took this music, Val, and they brought in trumpets and bass, and they brought the house music, Chicago, New York, Detroit, house music sound into those old 70 disco cuts on remixes and remakes. So the original versions were okay, but if you got a hold to the remix, it had about 8 or 16 bars in the front that you could throw it on at a Mendel or at the warehouse or the different club, and now you got deep house music. And Farley Keith was the king of deep house music, and also the first DJ of the 1980s that physically scratched house music. No one else did that.
You know, I'm going to bring up something that I just found out. I was watching the documentary, the 1619 Project with Nicole Hannah-Jones. Love the documentary. It is currently streaming on Hulu, and there is an episode. There's an episode on music where I didn't know this. Nile Rodgers from Chic did a lot of music for. He talked about the burning of the records in Kaminsky Park and talked about how they couldn't get work anymore because the music industry was moving completely away from disco. And he ended up writing for Blondie, Madonna, Duran. And do you know that he is a contributing writer for Break My Soul from Beyonce? I didn't know.
I didn't know. And he got and I'm gonna throw one more curveball in there. Because of the burning and what happened. This is some information you may or may not know, and some of our guests may not. I didn't know, and I was privy to this the other night. Right. But if you have not seen the documentary on Rick James, I would suggest it. I don't mean I'm Rick James, Stitch, right? So I mean the real Rick James. But did you know that the Rick James and his band, they went out on the road and they did Steel City Tour in his band in 1979, 1980. And guess who opened up for Rick James?
Cheek?
Prince.
Oh, Prince. And at that time,
he was Roger Nelson at that time.
Right. And he was probably, was this the first album or even before?
The second, because the first album was the first album, which I got that as well. He was still Roger Nelson. He was Roger at that time. Then he moved over to Prince. On that, I'm going uptown. Everybody see uptown. Set your mind free. So that album, it broke him loose. And so he went out. And you remember back in the day when you'd be at parties and the guy said, ooh, ooh, you know, ooh, ooh, and people. So that was a Rick James thing. And Prince came on the Steel City show. And he did that. And Rick James got mad. So he went backstage because he said that belonged to him. But Prince was so arrogant. He told him, you ain't got a monopoly on it, and nor do you have it patented. So I can say it and use it when I want. So so fast forward, Rick didn't like what was going on. He went to Motown. And of course, and people don't know, Rick James had a small or rather large cocaine habit. That kind of killed his career. So he goes into Motown. He jumps up on the desk because they wouldn't let him talk to Berry Gordy at the time. He jumps up on the desk and he goes ballistic. And the A&R and VP of Motown at that time writes Rick his last check for $1 million. And as he's walking out the door, he talks to the manager and says, Lionel Richie. And the guy said, what do you mean? He said, moving forward, Prince, Lionel Richie. And Prince decided not to sign with Motown, so he went to Warner Brothers because he didn't like Rick James and what was going on. And if you go back and look at history, in 1982, 83, 84, once Lionel left the Commodores, his career blew up because of Rick James' mistakes.
Yeah. So to kind of stay on the house music thing, I'm very grateful with kind of the foundation that a lot of the Chicago house, I want to say trendsetters and also the founders did for the genre. And I love to say that Chicago is the place that created and I like to think sustained, because I can turn on the radio on any Friday, Saturday night and I'll hear some house music. And I'll hear a Rick James, a Prince track, even a Lionel Richie or Commodores track with a driving house beat underneath it, because they'll grab the vocals and kind of just compose it. I always say it wrong, but put it over another instrumental, and it always sounds great. But in closing, if you were to recommend to someone who is still in their teens or early 20s, if they wanted to really search out kind of the foundation of house music, where would you direct them and which artist?
Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back and make one comment real quick on your last piece, and it'll bring me forward. And you are completely right on that in terms of the artist and how it got there. And what you have to look at is, at that time, even though New York had their own scene, because we got an opportunity to get Frankie Knuckles, which kept Chicago out. Baltimore had the bop and the bebop. They were doing something a little bit different, right? Right. Baltimore and DC still had the same thing, but it wasn't house music. So if you're listening tonight, there's a great documentary. You can go on YouTube, you don't even have to go to Netflix, but if you can, but you can go to YouTube and type in the history of Chicago house music. And they go back to talk to my buddies who were at my house when I was in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. My boy Vince Lawrence, with Jesse Saunders, when they put this stuff together with Chip E and all these guys. Early stages of when they were putting these music together. I remember in my mama's basement, they were making this song called On and On, On and On, dum 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 dum, and I never forget, Vince came down one day, was telling me, man, you need to check out the song. I'm thinking, man, house music is not gonna last. And I was too busy. I was a basketball player, and coming through the city, and I go back and smack myself because I'm saying I was this close to Vince Lawrence and Jesse Saunders, and could have been in a documentary, and you could have been speaking to me as one of the historians of house music back in the day, even though the information I'm telling you now is so, viable to house music.
You're a historian, and because you still DJ and have an interest in that, you
yeah, I don't leave that era at all. That music is just, and add one other point you mentioned about Beyonce, the person you forgot also who made a slamming album this year, and everybody said that person was going to kill hip hop was who? Drake. Drake dropped a house album. And if people ain't heard Drake's house album, oh my God. Drake's house album, actually, Val, came out before Beyonce. And Beyonce heard Drake's album and she was like, because everybody thought it was going to be a flop. And do you know Drake took that house album over to the UK and it was #1 for 7 or 8 weeks on the charts. And then it hit the US and people were like, oh, but then once it dropped a few of the tracks, they were like, oh my God. I was going in the clubs hearing Drake's house music, and then all of a sudden Beyonce dropped You Must Break My Heart, and then the rest of the album came, and then both artists were like, boom.
So house music has definitely influenced our current generation, and if they wanted to get kind of the foundation of where it comes from, check out that documentary that Coach told you about. You type in the history of Chicago house music, and
history of Chicago house music. It would pull right up.
Right, and then also streaming right now is the 1619 Project, Nicole Hannah Jones.
1619 is not.
I love the episode talking about music and kind of the history of our people and all the music genres we've created: jazz, R&B, and house music. but definitely wrapping it up, Coach. I mean, like, if you were to say your favorite song from, let's say, the era of the 80s that's house music, which one would it be, or is it like your top 3? Give me your top 3.
My top 3, one I just showed you there. One of my top 3 is definitely Chicago's house anthem of it all, the Marshall Jefferson.
Okay. Number 1, number 2.
You got to do that. I say my number 2 is got to be my boy Jesse Saunders and my homeboy Vincent, Waiting on My Angel.
Okay.
And then number 3 is got to be Frankie Knuckles and Godfather of house music. I think those 3, I can put those 3 songs on any stage in any club in Chicago during any era. And if I got anyone, they're going to jump to it. And I'm going to give you one more carrot real quick too, Val.
I want to give my 3 before I forget.
Oh yeah, let me hear your 3 real quick. I'll give you my carrot.
My 3 that I have is If You Only Knew.
Okay.
That's Chip E. I love Mr. Fingers.
Fingers.
I can't think of the name of it right now. And then obviously Marshall Jefferson, Gotta Have House Music. Like every time I hear that, I get hot. And then honorable mention, Feeling Moody.
Feeling Moody.
Yeah. So what were you gonna say?
And Moody was actually a UK track that actually won. So that ended up being a UK track that actually came in. But I was going to tell these guys, if you are a true house music lover, or if you are a DJ trying to get into that house music sound, and you really want to know the history and the music, every single year in Chicago, they have the Hot Mix 5 house party in Jackson Park. Wow. And if you can just go online and Google Chicago Hot Mix 5 anniversary party in Jackson Park, Chicago on 63rd Street. And that, if you don't get there by 9 a.m., don't show up. Matter of fact,
exactly.
Take a Uber, because they ain't no place to park.
We just mentioned this last night. Beyonce won for the Renaissance album. And then also Love Train. I didn't know it was originally recorded by Confunction.
Right.
That remake by Silk Sonic won.
How do you not know that? That is a Confunction jam.
Yes, that's a Confunction song. And he told G Hightower said that song was released in either 82, 83. That song is now 40 years old. And
40 years old. And if you go back and listen to the original, it sounds the same almost.
It sounds the same. And I have to say, I'm not a fan of a lot of remakes, but Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars vocals on Love Train, it makes sense that they won the NAACP Image Awards for Best
and
Duo.
The dance. And they had the dance down.
And they had the dance too. And they also, I believe they also won a Grammy for that as well. Oh my gosh, Coach. So much time has gone by, but I'm so grateful that you were able to join me on this special edition of #Womble Wednesdays. Mr. Womble will be back next week with Interludes Extra presents #Womble Wednesdays. To see the entire #Womble Wednesdays episode with Val the Voice and Coach Tony, please visit our Interludes YouTube channel.
Interludes. Original concept by Valerie Johnson. Written by Michael Womble. Produced by Michael Womble and Valerie Johnson. Original intro and outro music produced by Kendall Nesbitt. Interludes. A Peer Lighthouse production. This episode is brought to you by
Interludes Extra presents Find Your Voice on Patreon. See behind the scenes with Interludes, tips on how to become a podcaster, and merch featuring our Interludes logo. Become a friend, a fan, and join our VIP podcasting community today by visiting the website patreon.com/interludes. Become a future sponsor or advertiser on our podcasting platform by visiting our website today.
To subscribe to our YouTube channel or join Interludes Facebook group, visit the website linktree/peerlightmedia. That's linktr.ee/peerlightmedia.